I want to share with you a quote that had a massive impact on my life, and I wanted to have a massive impact on yours because this is part of the mandatory training. What I want to share with you today is like must know information if you're going to create healthy sexuality and a great life. And that quote is from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Chapter 1, it's chapter 1 for a reason. And here's the quote: "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." I want to say that one more time. This is one that you want to not just write down, but understand. And we're going to talk exactly why this quote is chapter 1 from the book Atomic Habits, why it's mandatory if you want to create healthy sexuality and a great life. We're going to go over that today. I'm going to share with you also the essential systems of the mindful habit system, the system that Michelle and I, my wife and I, created, that we've been evolving over the course of the past 13 years to move men and partners forward faster, do it at a deep identity level, and sustain it, right? So these systems that I'm going to share with you today are the essential elements of healthy sexuality and a great life. I'm Craig Pera. I'm the founder of the Mindful Habit System. And like I said, my wife and I, for the past 13 years, have been honestly, ethically helping guys kick some serious ass. It's been just an amazing privilege. 2 weeks ago, we had our second annual retreat in Oceanside, California, and it was such a blessing and a privilege to be part of something so special. There was laughs, there was tears, there was adventures. We went on a surf lesson, which I thought would just be a lesson in failure. It was a really, really powerful experience. I'm honored that you're listening. Please take notes. I think what I'm sharing with you today is very, very, very important. And I want to start with why this problem, sex addiction and porn addiction, is so difficult to solve. Why creating healthy sexuality and a great life is ridiculously hard to solve and sustain. And the reason for that, and sometimes like you guys listening, right, you may have heard from your partners, just stop. And I remember Michelle would say that to me, like, listen, you're doing something that's clearly bad for you. It's devastating me. Just stop. And it took me a while, and eventually Michelle came to understand it. It doesn't mean that she didn't set boundaries, that she didn't, have a line where, hey, if things don't change and this happens, I'm out. But this awareness that there is a capacity issue. And what I mean by this, brother, is you can't help it. And I don't just mean porn, prostitutes, massage parlors, any negative reaction, right? We're talking about any negative reaction because any negative reaction contributes that energy shift in the body from positive to negative. Judgment, criticism, stress, anxiety, resentment. Right? That's bad for your body. And it is the aggregate of those triggers that you're numbing, coping, and escaping from, where you're using porn or other behaviors as a way to numb, cope, and escape, and a reward. And the reason why it is ridiculously difficult to stop and why systems are necessary is because, number one, we are wired for variety as men, and pornography has exploited that in ways that our ancestors couldn't even fathom. We're wired to be more visual. Men tend to have a higher sex drive. And so you've got the biology. You've got just starting with the biology. And it started in childhood. For most of my clients, the oogling and objectifying, that started pre-puberty. And nowadays, the average age of exposure, I've read is 11, but it's even younger. And think about what those kids are watching. Guys, this is why we have to step up as fathers. Not only can we not let our shortcomings shame us from doing what we need to do to protect our kids online and to have open and honest conversations with them about failure and sexuality and pleasure and bodies and all the things that come up with it, right? Not only do we have to do it, we have to be a leader in that regard because we appreciate the damage. And for us, brothers, it started in magazines, right? So this is for you fathers out there and for you grandfathers out there. Just a side note to think about where shame is preventing you from being a leader in an area where it is more important than ever to be a leader. So it started in childhood. So we've got biological wiring, started in childhood, and not just pleasure seeking either, a way to numb, cope, and escape from difficult feelings. So at a primal human feeling level, you've got discomfort and now you have pleasure, right? That started in childhood. And not only did it start in childhood, the hiding it and the shame started in childhood, right? You knew this wasn't something you did on the front lawn, nor should you have been. My point is only the hiding, the shame, the secrets, the programming around sin, the programming around shame. So the lying, the hiding started in childhood. So that's why this is such a ridiculously difficult problem to solve. This is not a bad habit. It is a deeply entrenched coping strategy that has evolved on top of a natural biology to meet needs. To meet needs. The only way you're not going to get those needs met reactively is to meet them proactively, and you need systems to do it. You need systems. And what a system is, and so for you guys who are executives, who are leaders, just look at your organization. There is a combination of systems that have evolved over time to create this output of great product, great service, great accounting, great legal, right? Or it's a mess because while the goals might be there, the systems are not. The systems are the different buckets of your life that you pay attention to at the 50,000 foot level. Okay, it's what are the different categories of your life that demand intentional focus. It's consider it a framework, a playbook, something that empowers you to operationalize your purpose, your direction, your drive. Where do you want to go? Which systems do you need to get there? So you think of a business, you've got departments. There's a finance department, really, really important. There's human resources, operations, risk management. We'll talk about risk management, each with structure, process, protocols, standard operating procedure, and accountability. We'll talk about that, right? Your life is no different. If you want to create healthy sexuality, sustain healthy sexuality, which you have to do by living a great life, you need to have a focus on systems. And we'll talk about those today. So what are the essential systems of the mindful habit? So I have been trying to distill this list down for over a decade. And I've tried to come up with creative ways to make an acronym so it spells like power or, healthy sexuality and a great life. I haven't done that. So I do not have a cute moniker or an abbreviation. But what I want to focus on or is invite you to say, you know what? I connect with this. I agree with Craig that, first of all, I get the systems thing. See, guys, because this habit is so difficult to break, you know by now, right? It's not sobriety. Sobriety is the result. It is the byproduct. It is you've broken the habit because you've made other habits. And when you think about it from a systems perspective, if the formula is break a habit, make a habit, then what systems do you need on the make a habit side of the equation? And I have been wrestling with that for over a decade. And here's the best I got. So first, you need purpose and direction. If you do not know your North Star, you will drift. People who have purpose live longer and have better both mental and physical health. Your purpose can be sobriety. Your purpose certainly can be to not hurt your wife, but your purpose should be to build the best relationship with the most important relationship in your life that impacts your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, her physical health, mental health, and spiritual health. You have purpose. There's purpose on that make a habit. And in that purpose, there's direction. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? So in the program, we break it down by career, finances, health, hobbies, relationships, and spirituality. What do you want to accomplish and why? So direction and purpose, really, really, really important. And it's not just doing it either, it's operationalizing it. How do you incorporate your direction and purpose into the fabric of your reality so you can create and sustain healthy sexuality in a great life, which is ridiculously hard. Life is hard. And there's a really simple coping strategy that makes it easier short term, but in the long term can potentially destroy your life if you're listening to me. So it's not just defining direction and purpose, it's operationalizing direction and purpose. And that means weaving it into the fabric of your reality. And we'll talk about that a little bit, how to do that. Second, so you've heard me say to break a habit, you have to make a habit. And I so often focus on the make a habit part of the equation, and the break a habit part of the equation needs focus too, right? Businesses need to manage risk. So you need to know exactly when, where, why, how you are most vulnerable and have a specific plan for that. So that time and place where you're most vulnerable, we call the red zone. It's not perfect, but it's something to build on. What are you going to do instead? And the first red zone plan that clients typically do is usually a reactive plan. I have to read a book, meditate, exercise, call somebody to distract me. And I'm like, no, that's not the distraction. The numbing, coping, and escaping and beating your dick to death, that's the distraction. So the risk management goes from red zone starts reactive, then red zone incorporate purpose. How do you reclaim that space? So that office where you did all these things that you now regret that caused great pain in your life, you want that space to reflect your identity, which comes from direction and purpose. So you see how they build on each other? So of course you're going to get triggered. You need a plan for that. Okay, really, really important concept in the mindful habit is what do you do exactly when you get triggered? And not only knowing exactly what you do, that leads me to the next system, which is self-leadership. And self-leadership includes self-control and self-esteem. And the theory is, just like from the Pixar movie Inside Out, and anybody who's been in recovery long-term knows, these parts don't go away. The addict part, the liar part, the not good enough part, the shame part, given the right set of circumstances, those parts will be triggered into hijacking your system. But if you know how to lead them, and there's like literally an evidence-based framework, the internal family systems model, the mindful habit system, which incorporates elements of the internal family systems model, some of the best professional training that I did was in the internal family systems model. And I have the next level of training coming up in June, and I cannot wait. But this concept of leading your parts to positive outcomes, which is so important, because what a lot of people do and what you might be doing is diseasifying that part, or even demonizing that addict part of you. And that certainly makes sense because of the poor outcomes that this part has created in your life. You're listening to me, right? Like, sorry. That means there's been a lot of pain. And the God's honest truth, though, and the scientific truth, and from a neuroscience perspective, there's no such thing as bad habits or good habits. There's just trained, conditioned responses. So when that addict part hijacks agency and control and takes over, right, the concept of self-leadership and understanding what that part needs, putting the container of all the family of origin root cause work that maybe if you're listening you've done in therapy, this puts it in that container. This is how that part was trained. So self-leadership, self-control, all of that's great. And the third prong of that is self-esteem. If you don't feel good about yourself, if you're not moving towards something, if that pilot light in you isn't burning hotter, then that's something you got to fix. Right? No one's successful long-term who continues to feel like a worthless piece of shit. They learn that self-forgiveness is not a one-time act. It may come in the emotional catharsis, epiphany moment that you've had in group work or in therapy, and those are awesome. I love them, but use that as a model, as a template. Self-forgiveness is a process, and if you understand your parts, you know that. Right, so really, really, really important: self-leadership, self-control, and self-esteem. Okay, here's the next one. The next one is ridiculously obvious, and it is accountability. Greatness never happens in isolation. If you believe me that this is a ridiculously difficult problem to solve, to break a habit, you have to make a habit, and all these make a habit things result in the cure, which I've been saying for 13 years, honestly, with integrity, able to hold myself up high, despite my 2-month pop-up phase error. Sorry about that. The cure is the aggressive pursuit of a great life. Because greatness isn't like, oh, maybe we'll get there. That's the solution. We talked about how difficult this problem is to solve. That's just at a basic level without even understanding what you have going on in your life. So you need accountability, and you need primary accountability. You can have secondary accountability. Primary accountability has to be on the make a habit part of the equation. Has to be on your fundamental 5: eating, sleeping, hydrating, exercising, practice mindfulness. You need accountability on the basics. If you're not doing the basics, please don't set those goals and expectations for yourself. You won't achieve them. You can't. You can't create healthy sexuality and have a shitty diet, and put poison in your body, not sleep, not hydrate, not train the monkey minds, not move your body around. You need accountability. Right? And anybody who's listening who has any business background, which a lot of my clients do, they know, right? Like that, you know that nothing great comes without accountability. Hey, I got a good idea. Let's not worry about cash in a retail business because everything's going to work its way out. Like, that's ridiculous. It's preposterous. If it's important, you need accountability. If your marriage is important to you, if legacy is important to you, family is important to you, you need accountability. And that accountability must be primarily on the make a habit part of the equation because you agree. Right? I'm not telling you this. You experience this as your own truth, your own reality, your own research. To break a habit, you have to make a habit. So if you have to do that, then we need accountability on that. And I have been analyzing what would my what would the mindful habit sobriety chips be? Like what is there a way to, create a measurement that measures these streaks? And the one idea that I had is the right track chip versus the wrong track chip. So in terms of accountability, one aspect of your accountability system you want is to pull that ripcord and like, hey, you're on the wrong track. And certainly in life, you will be on the wrong track. The key is being aware of it, having the distress tolerance skills to be able to sit in it while simultaneously taking steps to get out of it. You can't just run away from the pain because that which you resist persists. What would that metric be? And I feel like right track, wrong track is like if you measured it over maybe a month period, like every 30-day window, you on the right track, or a 1-week window, you on the right track, or you on the wrong track. And you have to define that in the mindful habit system. You define that minimum performance standard. It's critical. It's critical because that sends up the flares. Like, I can't lie to myself anymore and tell me that I'm on the right track, not doing these things, right? That mandatory minimum. So accountability number 4 is very important. One of the, accountability, I don't remember the name of the study, but accountability increases success rate by 95%. That's probably obvious. So next, number 5, community, connection, and relationships. There is a wonderful TED Talk by Johann Hari, which is Everything I Knew About Addiction is Wrong. I would really encourage you to watch it. And here's what he says. The opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. So within that connection, if you can create vulnerability and accountability, which is like a wicked important part of our next level long-term support program, we got to leverage those 3 things, right? If the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection, you need to connect. You need to prioritize your relationship. You need to prioritize connection. And that for us men is ridiculously difficult. It's why faith can be so important, right? Even if you're not feeling all of it, but you go to a place and there's community there and there's faith there and there's people, sharing their wisdom and trying to do the right thing by other people. So it's really, really hard for us men, right? There's a loneliness epidemic. You might be part of that loneliness epidemic. It's why I joined Rotary Club. I wasn't practicing what I preach, let me be honest. Michelle asked me to run an errand, and I realized that I hadn't been out of the house in like 20-something days. I live at home. I work at home. My gym is in my garage. I love taking walks around the neighborhood. I'm in my zone, doing what I do, my routine. And I went, I am on the wrong track. My community, my connection, that which I preach, I had isolated. Little post-COVID. A lot post-COVID. Definitely post-COVID. That had a big impact. Anyway, so I joined my local Rotary Club, which is a wonderful organization. We give back to the community. We meet once a week. We have lunch together. We have meetings. We answer a few trivia questions. We all are doing it because we care about the community. So community is really important. Connection is really important. And if your wife is your queen, and as the rappers say, your ride or die, like the woman that you're taking to the hospital if something bad happens, or she's taking you to the hospital when something bad happens, and you want to grow old with this lady, and you want to leave a legacy that you can be proud of, and not a man who chased cheap thrills, addicted to high fructose corn syrup, but was a man of integrity, a man who use this crisis as a catalyst to recognize our sexual energy is really powerful and very destructive if left unchecked. So community, connection, and relationships, number 5. Number 6, mindfulness and faith. And I put that together, although they are distinct concepts. Ours is a secular program. I have this buffet approach to faith that, I've learned and gotten so much value from my clients. I was raised a Catholic, still figuring things out, love mindfulness. So I just want to tell you, mindfulness reduces depression, anxiety, PTSD, reduces the stress level cortisol, increases well-being, increases gratitude, literally changes the gray matter in your brain after 30 days. You have to train the monkey mind. Just like your body, just like your mind. And it's a difficult pill to swallow. No, like when I'm gonna sit there and be still and listen, the dopamine with the short-term attention span, and you fathers, right? You see it with your kids. It's getting worse. Well, it's impacting you too. So you have to train the monkey mind. And I got a host of other videos on what you can do. And if anybody has any questions about mindfulness, put them in the comments or email support@themindfulhabit.com with any comments that you have or any suggestions for an episode. So for my men of faith, surprise, surprise, here's a statistic for you. Men who embrace their faith are an active part of a healing, loving, connecting, grace-centric, charity community, live happier lives. Surprise, surprise. So ridiculously important. Mindfulness-based relapse prevention was shown to be as effective as CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the documented studies regarding faith are just obvious, right? It really, really helps. Really, really helps. And for you brothers who can't figure it out, right? You maybe might be rebelling against your childhood faith, which is what I did. My altar boy priest, who took care of us, who I felt very warm towards, and I remember like gentle hugs, and I remember, kindness and warmth and softness. Well, he ended up killing himself after he was accused with very credible allegations of being a child molester. And so not only did the church have those problems, but I had a, personal connection to that problem. So I rebelled. And working with clients, I would see how much joy they got, how much hope they got, how they got like this structure of like being kind, doing unto others, and the connections that they had. And so I realized for me, like, I didn't have to throw it all away. There are a lot of great lessons there, and I can embrace those lessons. I can embrace that philosophy. I can ask myself, what would Jesus do? And pull on those lessons from my childhood to form my identity. And so faith or mindfulness or a connection to something greater, that identity is really, really important. Another identity-centric system that I want to highlight is gratitude. So there is so much evidence. I invite you to Google the science of gratitude. It has become such an important perspective. And I personally learned this lesson through being forced to up my mindfulness game because of significant physical pain. And I won't bore you with the whole story. Ben, hopefully you're listening to this. I went to talk to a friend of mine. I was dying in pain. I was having fantasy about heroin again. Is it really that bad? I think I can manage it this time. Oh, but it's got the fentanyl. No, I can order it online. Like, my thoughts are starting to wander. I'm in incredible pain. And I go reach out to my friend who really knew this stuff. We talk on the phone, and he says, Craig, you teach this stuff. You teach mindfulness, right? Yep. You know what to do. All you have to do is breathe and practice gratitude. And in my mind, I thought, you son of a bitch. How about I hug the tree and sing Kumbaya and wave my sage around? I was pissed. And he could tell based on my energetic reaction. So he had me take this chronic pain class with this famous surgeon, Dr. David Hanscom, the author of the book Back in Control. If you struggle with chronic pain, you need to hear this. And I went into this deep scientific dive on the impact of breathing and practicing gratitude. And it literally changed my life, and it will change yours too. It is perspective. Your cup is half full, it's half empty. There is no cup. Whatever perspective you want to have. And it's not using gratitude as a sword. I shouldn't feel this way because someone else is suffering, right? Your pain doesn't that which you resist persist, right? So it's not like a shot of heroin. It's perspective. It's perspective, and it is very, very important. And one perspective I want you to have is that your problem, you solving this problem and solving it over extended periods of time, like you're living a great life. Your issues forced you to confront your deepest shame, your darkest secrets, your capacity to lie, the profound lack of empathy despite loving your family and would do anything for your family. The same man who would push his family out of the way of a car to save them lies, cheats, sneaks, gaslights, right? And that feels pretty shitty, right? But here's the thing, there's reasons for it, right? You were trained, not an excuse, right? You lacked capacity. This is about learning capacity, building capacity, sustaining capacity to be proactive instead of reactive. And you need to build systems if you're going to make that happen. Gratitude is an important aspect of the system. Last but not least is healthy sexuality. I think this is so important because if you're listening to this, you have a deep appreciation or are gaining a deep appreciation for the destructive power of this powerful force run amok. It moving away from love, moving away from connection, this river that flows towards shame, towards isolation. And so if you are developing a deep appreciation for its destructive power, and if you're listening, you have some appreciation for it. Well, as destructive as it is, the other side of that is as constructive as it can be. It is a powerful force, and with great power comes great responsibility. You have to learn how to honor it, respect it, nurture it, cherish it, protect it. You have to protect it now more than ever. Now more than ever. It's everywhere. Even if you structure your stream and your feed and you try to do everything right, boom, right? You're going to have to learn that's not good for me. Not because you'll get in trouble, not because mommy's going to spank you because you've been a bad boy, right? Not that projecting mother bullshit onto your wife, but building an identity of a man who says, this is powerful, I need to protect it. I am no longer letting these outside sources stain my arousal template, push me deeper into despair of isolation, loneliness, darkness, and whatever you're looking at. You know what you're looking at. Right? Is that healthy, unhealthy? Only you can decide that. Only you can decide that. The goal cannot be sobriety. The goal must be healthy sexuality. And I want you to think about that. I want you to define it to the best of your ability. Write it down. What does it look like? Right? Is healthy sexuality fighting with your wife about your ability to look at a bathing suit picture? Is that the hill you're dying on? Is that healthy? Or is there a teenage sexuality, a boy, feeling empowered by disobeying mommy? Right? Is that healthy? Doesn't mean you don't notice, guys. That's the thing. It doesn't mean you don't notice. But for those of you whose sexuality is banged up and stained, early childhood sexual experiences, religious shame, fire and brimstone, secrets, isolation, more shame as you get older and older, that has to be a priority, right? That powerful force needs to be channeled and directed. And for at least me, it took like 20 years of working on this to have that perspective and like, wait a minute, I know what I don't want. Well, part of me wants that. The other part of me knows it'll destroy everything that's good for my family. Like, what's healthy? What's healthy? Peeking, oh, that's healthy. Looking down blouses, that's healthy. Looking up skirts, losing yourself to a Instagram video, right? Is that healthy? And so that's how I want you, or I encourage you to define this journey. What's healthy? And how do you want if you had a teenage son, right, how would you want him to honor and respect women? Would you want him to be a slave to boobies and butts and these highly sophisticated marketing funnels using sex to sell us shit we do not need? No. You want him to be strong. You want him not to be insecure. You want him not to be rattled. You want him to know that this is a powerful force that must be channeled and directed, and you must protect it. You must protect it. There's often a spiritual or religious moral grounds that it's important for you to communicate, but you got to communicate the make a habit part, right? And if you don't connect with, how are you going to communicate it with your child? These are conversations that you can have. Say, hey, let's talk about that. I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't stop staring. I obsessed. I remember once in college, I peeked out the window, sat there for 3 hours hoping for a peek. Age appropriate, of course. But here's the thing. This is my last, footnote on helping your children. I think that it is going to take men to say, hey, kid, I need you to know that this shit fucked me up. I need you to know that this created space between you, me, and your mom. I want you to know it turned me into a liar. I want you to know it brought me down some crazy dark path that I wish I never went down. I think it's going to take that level of honesty, brothers, to counter the narrative that, hey, it is what it is. Yeah, they're protected. There's this illusion we're telling ourselves. They're not. They're not. And the only way to pierce through that noise is being honest. So there's a powerful opportunity here, man. I just don't think you can pierce that healthy porn narrative, which it's everywhere, right? If your kid gets sucked up into the manosphere, gets the porn industry line and regular entertainment line has been obliterated, it doesn't exist anymore. Your kids could be watching the non-nude content from the sex house in LA, and you wouldn't know. You'd say, oh, what's that? Nothing, right? You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. It's become mainstream. So you have to be a leader. And that is why, brother, your focus must be on creating healthy sexuality. And for me, the way that I came to think of it, my 12-step meetings, my therapy all helped me. I needed to focus on my problems. I needed to know about, other people's slips to keep me from going. And I knew I needed to build an identity around healthy sexuality. I knew that I needed to focus on the make a habit part of the equation. And once I realized that at that low point, coming out of inpatient, it was the Feed the Right Wolf story and Break a Habit, Make a Habit came to me at the same time after I got my prescription, after getting out of the hospital for trying to hurt myself. More therapy, more meetings. And I remember being very, very depressed at that time. And I actually slipped with drugs as soon as I got out of inpatient and made some phone calls that I shouldn't have been making. And I was so down, so low, and two concepts punched me in the face at the same time. Break a habit, make a habit, and feed the right wolf. Two wolves inside you, one good, one bad. Which one wins? The one you feed. So those two stories or lessons said you have to focus on the make a habit. You've got to focus on feeding the right wolf. And over time, hence the mindful habit system was born. So take the examples that I gave you: purpose, risk management, self-leadership, accountability, community connection and relationships, mindfulness, faith, gratitude, and healthy sexuality. Ask yourself, what do you need to be paying attention to at that 50,000 foot level? What containers do you need to make sure these necessary systems? Because again, guys, there's an expression in 12 steps that I love. No matter how far down the road you get, you're always 3 feet away from the ditch. No matter how far down the road you go, you're always 3 feet away from the ditch. I think this one is you're 1 foot away. Well, my phone's right there. You're less than 1 foot away. It is such an easy escape, an easy release, an easy reward. And if you want to channel that energy into greatness, you have to feed the right wolf. You have to focus on make a habit, and you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. If you don't have your system, borrow mine. All right, brothers, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or any comments, please put them in the comments. Email it to support@themindfulhabit.com. What systems do you need to create and sustain healthy sexuality and a great life? Go to mindfulhabithelp.com, watch the free training, book a call if you are ready to aggressively pursue a great life. Thanks for listening. Embrace your power of choice and feed the right wolf. Bye, everybody.